material
Anything
that'll
organic?
break down. Yeah.
Okay, next question is there such a thing as like getting some ugly bacteria in there, like a botulism or
Not
something like that?
with the heating up factor. Compost piles can heat up to 100 degrees or more, 120, and no pathogen can live in that kind of amount of heat. And then you've got microbes just chewing away. I mean, they're eating it up as fast as they can. They're degrading. They're making more microbes, and by the time you do all of that and heat it up, and that's what's happening when you're getting super heat from too fresh a compost. The microbes haven't finished it off yet. They're still working away at it. And then you could burn plants. If you get compost that's not been finished, that's one thing you should watch. It hadn't finished yet, and can actually burn the plants that you're using it on. Fine roots, grass, things like that. They'll end up yellow and burned if you're not careful. But normally, if you got a reputable place, like I said, Gardenville, a lot of other people make compost, but you have to make sure it's cooked, it's finished. If it smells like ammonia, it's probably not done yet.
You spoke of heat in the compost pile. I've run across several times cold compost.
Right.
Is that
And
beneficial?
that means well, if your own compost pile is cold, okay, then you don't have enough nitrogen in there to keep it cooking. There's not enough things feeding microbes. So if you will turn the pile, if you moisten the pile, not wet, but moistened, even moistened, and actually spray things like molasses, it's a carbohydrate that feeds microbes, then it's an instant booster, a speed for microbes. You'll get them going quicker.
Okay.
But if you never turn it, you never get air into the middle of the pile, you're not going to cook as quick. And if you have too much of, say, carbon, which is leaves or grass clippings, you're not going to cook either. So you need more nitrogen as a rule.
Okay.
Nitrogen's anything that's green.
And then, how often should you turn it? I've heard 2 times minimum a week.
I mean, there's all kinds of rules. I mean, whenever you get a chance. You know, I never turned mine. I just kept piling it up. And I'd go out there and it's going down. I'd pile more on there. I said, there's no way that's all going to break down. I'd have it up to there. And in a few months, it'd be down to there. And by next season, it was down to there. So, and I didn't do anything. And in Malcolm's book, he has some tips for making your own compost pile. And he says, be patient. If you screw up, nature's going to decompose it and break it down anyway. But
are there any like cooking oils you want to put in there? Like if I cook veggies in like an organic
well, I think
canola
it might
oil or
attract dogs and cats and critters and things like that.
But if it's
there
very deep
again,
enough inside, would that?
and if it's mixed through the thing, I think you're still okay. I mean, anything out of the kitchen, I think, can go in there. Any kind of food scraps, even if it had grease on it. But anyway, check the website for Dooley's own little Texas tea brewer. 5-gallon bucket, air pump, couple pounds of compost. 6 to 8 hours later, you got liquid gold, basically, or compost tea. And there are all kinds of containers. The easiest thing is just to get a wire mesh fence, make a big circle out of it, tie it together on one side, start throwing your stuff in there. And then when you're ready to turn it, you pick the fence up, you move it over to here, you turn it maybe into another fence, maybe like that, or you don't even turn it. But compost bins don't have to be complicated. The ones that I don't see how could ever work are these little plastic bins that are about this big. The air doesn't flow through there, which is really important. You can't hardly put but one day's debris in there before it's full. So if I had a garden of any size, in which I don't, because I'm working on everybody else's garden, I only have one compost bin, but it's every bit this big, and it's just a wire mesh fence in a circle. But it gets good airflow, and anything that I happen to generate out of my garden, that's what goes in it. I think that's all I had. Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned you don't want compost to smell like ammonia.
Right.
Is it gonna have sort of a neutral light?
Yes. It's not going to smell like, but it's going to smell like good soil. In other words, the ammonia just means that the microbes are still working away at it. They haven't finished decomposing it, and it's maybe a little hot to use. But good compost. There again, back to Malcolm. Malcolm said, "How can you tell if a compost pile is done?" He said he just crammed his arm all the way in, as far as he could go, and brought it out. And if it smelled like good soil, it was done. So he's got a real scientific way to tell how compost is done. But I use it a lot in most of my soil blends or my beds that I create, flower beds. I have a soil blend that has a certain amount of compost in it. I do top dress trees in the fall and the winter with compost, and I do top dress lawns and my vegetable garden with compost a couple of times a year. Compost has a real low NPK too. It doesn't have these high fertilizer numbers, but you don't really want that. It does so many other good things besides just force feed plants. Anyway, I guess that's all I have. Any other questions?
How much were your books?
How much? They were $19. They're on sale for $10. Two of them. You take one? Sold. They're both sold. Listen to the local radio station. I'm back on the air again, doing gardening, organic gardening on Saturdays from 7 to 8. And I'll leave a couple of cards unless, in case somebody needs a consultation or help with a landscape. So
What are the call letters?
KGMB, AM 1420. It's a local AM station. Yes, ma'am.
I had a neighbor one time that was still get horse manure and then pour water over it and let it set and then poured that on.
That's compost tea. You know, horse manure may not have aged enough. It may be a little warm to use straight, but if it is set for a while and it's older, and horse manure, you'll have hay come up unless you let it compost and sit and decompose and break down for a while. I mean, it has to cook in order to kill those weed seeds from the hay. But that's what they were making. They were making compost tea.
Okay, well, he didn't do anything, but just pour water over it and let it set an hour. or so,
Well,
and pour it out
you can
as
do
well.
that. You can do that, except you got these solids coming out. I mean, they say strain it, especially if you're going to try to spray it. If you're going to try to spray it, but I mean, you can pour it directly on.
Well, he had a gorgeous lawn.
Right. Right.
I went to get mushroom compost in Gonzales last
Uh-huh.
year in the fall, and I had really good luck with that. I really
That's
liked
fabulous
it.
compost.
It was easy to spread. I didn't break
We
my
used to
back.
sell that in Dallas when I worked up there, and that was, you couldn't keep enough of that in because it wasn't hot. It was just rich as it can be. Talk about growing veggies or roses or whatever.
It's nitrogen in with it. It's really
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir.
She was talking about the horse manure and making
The tea.
the tea. I guess you could use cow manure as well too.
Any kind of manure.
And your point was it really should be sort of pretty dried out.
It should be
thoroughly on.
aged and broken down because stable bedding or stable horses, cows, whatever, the alfalfa, the hay, unless it's cooked for a while, you'll get the hay coming back up again because it hasn't broken down and heated up enough to kill any kind of weed seeds or pathogens. And it's really too fresh to try to use it. You really should let it sit in the back, mix some wood chips with it. I mean, just come back and get it in 6 or 8 months and let it break down a little bit.
And then still be used for the tea, right? And
Yes.
the-
Yes.
Without aeration, it's just compost leaching.
Right.
You're just leaching the water through. Without
Leaching.
the aeration, that's
You're
really
not
not compost.
you're not growing microbes. You're not feeding the microbes,
You're
making it
diluting
reproduce.
and breaking it up again.
Thank
Still
you.
good stuff.
I knew you should have
The
been.
technical term is just leaching.
Right. You should have done the talk.
I'm,
He
I
just
wasn't
doesn't-
out before.
Oh, he has?
I have before, whenever he has, I'll do it.
Next month, right, Lauren?
We're gonna do compost 2 months in a row?
Wow.
Well, we're gonna spread some compost.
It's a hot topic.
Hot topic.
Huh?
Well, thanks again. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.